Tehemton currently serves as the Vice President of the North American Mobile Council. Mobile Mirza. We have an unexpected technical difficulty we should be solving soon.
Okay, so while the technical difficulties are sorted out, let me first read out my disclaimer. Disclaimer. You see, ladies and gentlemen, I am given a topic that requires me to talk about other faiths, other religions. And I have a disclaimer that says the nature of this topic lends us to discuss some difficult issues in different religious teachings and practices. So these references are for academic purposes only and are not intended to criticize any religious teachings and practices or demonstrate superiority of any one religion over the other. That's my disclaimer. So if I say things that are a little harsh on one side or the other, please understand, I don't mean it that way. It's just that's the way I see it. And it's not meant to be in any derogatory way. So, Prophet Zarathustra's teachings. Prophet Zarathustra's teachings have been preserved by Zoroastrians. And also they are preserved by the followers of the religions that succeeded him. So they are preserved. Now, in order to figure out whether Zarathustra had any influence on other religions, we need to have two prerequisites. Two things must have happened to establish that in fact his teachings had an influence on other religions. The first is that priority in time for the influencer religion, in the sense that Zoroastrianism or Zarathustra should have been in place before the religion that is influenced. And the second possibility should be that there should be some cultural and religious contact with the religion that was influenced by his teachings. There should be two fundamental concepts that we need to keep in mind. These two things should have occurred before we can claim that there was any influence of Zoroastrian teachings on other faiths. So now, that brings us to the dating of Zoroastrian's teachings. When were they preached? When were they taught? Now, most of the teachings, as Dr. Choksi has so well explained, most of the teachings are lost. And it's very difficult to place a time. So the Hindu Rig Veda, being about 1200 or so BCE, is generally accepted. Generally accepted. And as Dr. Choksi has pointed out, there are linguistic similarities, and therefore one can conclude that Zarathustra's teachings would be around that time. A few hundred years up and down. When you look at about 3,500 years, what is a few hundred years? Nothing. So it's likely that these teachings were about 1,200 years before Christ. So that brings us to the conclusion that Christianity and Islam came way after that. Way after that. Now, and there was a significant influence of Zoroastrian teachings in Judaism. Judaism, being the mother religion, we can say that, of Christianity and Islam, then one can conclude that there has been some influence from Judaism to Christianity to Islam. And therefore, if Zarathustra influenced Judaism, we can conclude that he also influenced Christianity and Islam. So now, to understand what kind of influence did Zarathustra's teachings had on these two religions, we need to make some basic ground rules, basic understanding. The first understanding that I would put forward is all religions borrow from their predecessors and adapt old material for their new dispensations. All of them do that. Christianity and Islam are no exception. So if we take that premise, Christianity and Islam are influenced by Judaism. And also, it is well established that the followers of Zarathustra and followers of predecessors of Christianity and Islam, that is, the Jewish people, were in contact with each other. So, in 587 BCE, the Babylonian king, we know the history, but a quick lesson. The Babylonian king destroyed King Solomon's temple, and the Jews were held in captivity till the Persian king Cyrus the Great liberated them and rescued them and returned them to their holy land. And not only that, he made a declaration, a decree, that the second temple in Jerusalem be built. Cyrus the Great. And thus started the influence of Zarathustra on other religions. That was, I would say, a turning point. Had he not done that, things would have been different. The influence continues throughout Christianity and Islam because of that event. So to a great extent, we have to thank Cyrus the Great for this influence. Then Buddhism, Sikhism, Chinese traditional religions followed Zoroastrianism, but they do not meet the significant contact test. They didn't come in contact with each other. So they may have some similar teachings, but we cannot conclude that they were influenced by Zoroastrianism. They may have developed them independently. Hinduism, we can't forget that. 1 billion people. Hinduism was likely a parallel religion, preached about the same time that Zarathustra preached his religion. And again, it does not meet the significant contact test. They didn't come in contact with each other. In fact, if you look at it differently, Hinduism may have influenced the Zoroastrian practices that we have today, because people came in contact with Hinduism as our ancestors left Iran and went to India. So it might be the other way around. Now, to understand the influence of Zarathustra's teachings on world religion and philosophy, what we should do is we should examine how our present world religions, as it is practiced today, is influenced. And also, how secular life measures up against his teachings. Secular life is very important. So in order to do that, I would make some statements. The test of a religion is not what it preaches, but how it influences the behavior of its adherents, of its followers. It doesn't matter what the text says. It could give you golden rules of everything, but if it fails to influence the behavior of the people who follow it, that particular teaching has no meaning. Nothing. It can say anything it likes, but if people don't follow it, what good is it? It's very important. So, then the second thing we need to look at is Zarathustra's teachings, yes, they were incorporated in successive religions, but they didn't have the desired effect. They didn't have the desired effect. Did they translate it to what Zarathustra wanted it to be? So I would argue that the successive religions are influenced by the letter of Zarathustra's teachings and philosophy, but it may have missed the spirit of his teachings and philosophy. They may have accepted the letter of it, but they may have failed to get the spirit of it. And how do I come to this conclusion? We'll go over it step by step. So, let's look at secularism. Secularism is a principle where the state and religious aspects are separate. State does its own thing, religion has its own thing. So, Zarathustra's teachings, ironically, are best practiced in a secular state. In a secular state. They are best practiced in a secular state. And we will figure out how. So, the first aspect of it is we look at the teachings, and then we see how it has been influencing other faiths, and does it have the desired effect, and how does it affect the secular system that we live in right now. The first aspect we look at is the free will and individual responsibility. Free will and individual responsibility. So Zarathustra in his Gathas says, Stota Geushais Vaista, Avinata Sucha Mananga, Aviranao Vichitrayao, Narem Kakuyai Tanuye, Paramazayango, minus as the eye, Bodango Paiti. He says that hear with your ears and think with your mind. God has given you a good mind. And act accordingly, because you will be judged by your actions. By your actions. You are free to think. You are free to gather information. You are free to come up with answers to the questions that you face. You are free to do that. Freedom. But with that comes a responsibility. And you will be judged based on your responsibility. Zarathustra had no distinction of gender. You could be male or female. In fact, in this verse, he says men and women. He doesn't say only men or only women. He says men and women. So he has no distinction of gender. He has no distinction of race. You could be black, white, brown, doesn't matter. The same rule applies to you. He has no distinction of servitude. You could be master, you could be king, or you could be a poor peasant. Doesn't matter. You could be wealthy, rich. Bill Gates is to abide by the same rules as a sweeper on the street. Same rules. Rank. You could be president or prime minister of a country. You are allowed to do this. You are to abide by the same rules as the poorest person in that country, and no social status. So he has given this law, and he has given no distinction. Everyone will be treated the same. Okay, yeah, fine. So men and women are given a good mind. Okay. Thank you. So when technology works, it's beautiful. Thank you. Yes. All right. So he has given these laws, but he said there is no distinction. Let's see how these laws, these principles, were translated into religions that succeeded him. Equality of sexes. Men and women are equal. Were they? Some religious traditions treat women differently. in their text as well as in their practices, including praying separately. You can't pray with women, no, because they will pollute your mind. Zarathustra didn't say that. Testimony of a woman is 50%, that of a man. Why? Submission to your husband. Submit to your husband. Zarathustra didn't say that. Dress code. You have to cover yourself completely. Why? Isn't that same as a man covering himself completely? Driving, you can't drive. You have to wait till 2018 to drive. Zarathustra didn't say that, but of course cars were invented then. Tolerance. Religious and cultural tolerance is scarce in most religious practices. Many lives have been lost because of that. You know, historically, major religions have supported slavery in their text as well as practice. Zarathustra has no concept of slavery. In those days, barring maybe the prisoners of war, no concept of slaves. So, Martin Luther King said that we must learn to love together as brothers, or we are going to be perished together as fools. We have to love each other. We are equals. So now, let's put this concept to test. Did the religions that followed Zoroastrianism, did it accept this principle overall? Yes. In practice, did it? If you look at the way the religions are practiced today. No. They did not. So they honored the letter of his teachings. They failed to honor the other side, the spirit of his teachings. But don't be disheartened. We have secular law now. The secular law, amazingly, goes back to Zoroastrian's teachings. We are guilty or innocent based on the notion that we exercise free will. Doesn't matter whether you are, what color of skin that you have, whether you are rich or poor, secular law says you are equal. Zarathustra. Universal Declaration of Human Rights by United Nations has recognized the pioneering Zoroastrian view of human dignity, free will, and accountability. Secular law. Though this secular law and responsibility, human responsibility is coming into attack now. You must have often heard about an excuse presented in a court of law. The devil made me do it. Or I was too drunk, I didn't know what I was doing. And sometimes they're successful. But overall, that concept, the succeeding religions failed to bring them in the spirit of his teachings, which secular law is. To an extent, of course. Okay. And even an atheist, Christopher Hitchens, a well-known atheist, he agrees with Zarathustra. He says, take the risk of thinking for yourself. Much more happiness, truth, beauty, and wisdom will come to you that way. Think about yourself. Think for yourself. You are free to think. So, ladies and gentlemen, it took us as humanity about 3,500 years to come to this state where we have individual freedom, individual responsibility without any barriers to it. And we still have some work to do because all the countries are not on board yet. So then we take the second concept. Let's see if it works. Yes. Monotheism. Zarathustra is believed to be the first one to announce Ahura Mazda as one God. And it is believed that this concept was accepted by Jews during their contact with Zoroastrianism during King Cyrus's time. With one major difference. It's believed that Jewish monotheism recognizes one God as the source of good and evil. Zoroastrianism recognizes monotheism as Ahura Mazda as the only good and Ahriman as the only bad. But that's more of an interpretation. So, this concept, monotheism, did it come to religions that succeeded it? Yes. Yes. But that's the letter of his teaching. What about the spirit of his teaching? A new concept developed that said, it's my God. My God is the right God. Thou shalt not have other gods before me. Ya ilaha illallah. Allah is the only God. No God but Allah. What did Zarathustra say? Zarathustra meant that there is only one God. You can call him anything you like. You call him Allah, you call him whatever you like. There is only one God. And this concept, ladies and gentlemen, has claimed several lives. So did the religions live up to their expectation of following Zarathustra's influence? I would say yes. In letter, in the spirit of the teaching, no, they failed miserably. Now remember please my disclaimer. Very important. The next concept, heaven and hell. Yatta urvata shasata yamazdao dadat masyango kiti chai naiti yacha deregem degwade bioraso sabacha sababyo adai pitaish urvaiti ushta yasna 30. It says, to the pious souls, Ahura Mazda gives the good reward which their goodness has earned. Has no pre-qualifier. The next paragraph, or the paragraph before that, says, the good leaves a good name and fame behind on earth and attains reward in the abode of Ahura Mazda, Vaumana Asha. He goes on to say that this prize, this house of songs, he describes heaven as house of songs, has been promised to you during the times of salvation by reason of your good thinking and truth. He doesn't say that you have to follow me to go to heaven. Doesn't say that. He says that be good, be righteous, and there is a place for you in heaven. So, it believed that this concept was brought into Judaism during King Cyrus's times. So now let's see what the succeeding religions did. They brought in this concept. Of course, all religions have heaven and hell. Yes. Pope Leo XII said, there is no salvation outside the church. You have to join the church. Lutheran, there are 3 solos. Salvation by God's grace alone, through faith alone, for the sake of Christ's merit alone. What happened to righteousness? The most important qualifier to go to heaven according to Zarathustra. Talk about nothing. Judaism, on the other hand, maintained that concept. All righteous people go to heaven. All righteous people go to heaven. Same concept as Zoroastrianism. Islam, Those who observe the 5 pillars and martyrs to die for your religion, there is a first-class ticket waiting for you. In other words, it's my way or highway. Hinduism, well, there is no concept of heaven and hell. You come back again, moksha. Right? So, Zarathustra said no pre-qualifiers. He said, you have to do only one thing. One thing. Be righteous. Do the right thing for the rightness' sake. And you have a ticket to go to heaven. So now let's examine this concept. Did the religions that followed him follow this concept? Yes, but they failed. And then we go to the next one. Evo panto yoshe vispe anyesham apantam. There is only one path, the path of Asha, righteousness. All the rest of the paths are no paths. No paths. Zarathustra put forward this path of Asha and declared no non-righteous paths are the correct paths. He was against the worship of devils and animal sacrifices out of fear. He said that you are not to bribe or pay off the evil, you are to fight it. You have to fight the evil, not pay them off. Let's examine what happened to this concept. I am the only way and truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Zarathustra said nothing like it. The succeeding religions have insisted that theirs is the only way. Not only their religion, it's their sect, it's their practice, it's their observance, it's the only way. And if you don't, there are severe consequences. So now let's see, how does this concept improve with secularism? Secularism says, well, that's fine, but if you have done something wrong, as a secular society, we are going to punish you. We are going to treat you equally. Doesn't matter whether you believe in one God, whether you belong to a certain religion or not. To us, you are the same. That's what Zarathustra said. So you're not to have a free pass because you believe in something. You have a free pass because you did something. You practice that concept of Asha, the righteousness. So secular society is bringing that to fusion. The next part. Shoshant, Messiah, the world Savior, and the concept of Rashokharati, final renovation when evil is defeated. So Zarathustra talked about Shoshant in his Gathas to impress on his people that truth and justice will prevail, and evil will be destroyed, and righteousness will prevail over evil. Hebrew Bible refers to Cyrus the Great as the Messiah, and rightly so. Now various Jewish sects have different views, but they all believe in Messiah. Jesus was the Savior for Christians, rightly so. Islam acknowledges that Jesus will come back as Messiah. Jesus will come back, and he is going to perish all other religions except Islam. So ultra-Orthodox Jews are waiting for their Messiah. Buddhists are waiting for their Messiah, the next Buddha. Hindus are waiting for the next Messiah, Kalki, and the Maha-Avatar. And there have been a lot of messiahs. But most of them have proven to be false. And with tragic results. So some fringe groups keep postponing their prediction of Fashokereti, destruction of the world. And some of them go to great lengths to hasten the end of the world so that the second coming will come quicker. The last one was, of course, 28th of September 2015, when blood moon prophecy didn't come through. So now again, in the name of Soshin, in the name of Fashokereti, many lives have been lost. The next item, dualism, struggle against evil. So Zarathustra's philosophy promotes embracing the good and struggle against evil. He talks about a constant battle between good and the evil. Constant. Now let's see if this concept was accepted by the religions that succeeded him. Yes,